Okay, we can get started.
Right. Okay, great. Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call to order the November 8th, 2021 Board of Trustees meeting with the first order of business being public participation. I don't know if we have anything from public. Sure. Yeah, does she have a mic?
No, we're down on mic.
Okay. There you go.
Do you want me to speak from here? Yeah, okay, all right. As you recall, my name is Ann Moore. I live on Borthwick Avenue. We were together last month. And I don't have a table, so I'll do it this way. I received the footnotes from the library on October 21st and read it with interest and was looking for some of the information that you folks were talking about last month about the new space that the library is looking to build once the house at 59 is no longer there. So I was looking for some of that information just to let the public know that you were considering this. I'm curious as to why there is no mention of that in the footnotes for what is going to be, if I remember, yes, November and December. So there will not be any information for 2 months, yet you are also going to have a meeting in December. So I bring that question to you. I don't believe in asking that question that there is anything illicit going on here. But what I do feel very strongly about, having lived in this neighborhood for as long as I have, what I feel very strongly about is that if you are using the information from the survey that was sent out, that was a wish list. And I think the public needs to know how much that wish list might cost, if indeed that's what it is that you're going from, is every single request, or what that wish list has been pared down to and what the cost is going to be. And if this community actually is interested in having you continue looking at this project as something that the community would like to have. So I have a question and then I have that comment, and I guess I'm done.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any other public participation online or anything in the interim?
I have nothing in the.
Okay. Okay, now we'll move to the presentation of the annual audit. We have a guest appearing online, appearing in video, or?
We do. Give me a second. I'm just going
Sure.
to. Okay, Rachel,
Can you guys hear me?
we can.
Okay. I wasn't sure if you wanted to present the slideshow or if you wanted me to be able to do that and share my screen.
Your choice. I'm queued up to do it, but if you have it there, you're allowed to share your screen. You can do that as well.
Okay, so I'm going to try to do that really quick. Okay. Can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to leave this slide show up. My name is Rachel Reynolds. I am the manager on the engagement. Tom Hosey is the principal of the engagement. This presentation is going to be concerning the 2021 audit. If I talk too quickly, please let me know and just let me know to slow down. This presentation, again, Tom wasn't able to be here, so I thought I would step up and do the presentation for him. Just a quick agenda of what the presentation will include. We'll go through the required communications to those charged with governance, also known as the AUC 260 letter. We'll go through the different audit reports that we do on the audit of the library. We're going to discuss the report on internal control over financial reporting and in accordance with government auditing standards. We'll discuss some financial highlights. We'll go through a few of the note disclosures, as if you've reviewed the financial statement notes, you know that they can be kind of lengthy. And then we'll discuss if there's any management letter comments or recommendations for the library.
Can I raise something?
The first letter that we're going to talk about again is that communications to those charged with governance. We refer to that as the AUC 260. There's
Rachel,
some required communications included in that letter. Sorry, I thought someone said something.
Sorry, yeah, Rachel, we have one of our trustees has a comment.
I'm wondering if you can shift your presentation to, I forget what it's called, like auditorium mode. So there's a single slide that's going to be as big as it possibly can be without the sidebar of the other slides. I forget what you call it, but it's up on the toolbar. It looks like does anyone know what it's called? It's
She's got it. Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
Is that where you can see it? Can you just the slides? Or do I need to flip my screens?
Oh, is that good enough for?
Well, usually,
I'm not sure why it's
what's
doing
it called? Who does
subtitles.
PowerPoint? I do it all the time. I can't remember what it's called. It's up in the corner. It looks like a little glass. It's called like auditorium mode or something like that. So you see the mostly without a sidebar. The slides, if they can be made, let me put it this way. See if you can make the slide that's being shown a little bit bigger, please, if possible.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see if I can flip my screens. Is that better?
Yep.
That's good.
Sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, yep. Okay, so jumping to the communications to those charged with governance, this is a layer with required communications, and it touches on a couple of different areas. So one of the areas that it looks at is the qualification or aspects of the accounting practices. So this is where we talk about, you know, the roles and responsibilities of management to help assist in preparing the financial statements. It goes through and discusses any accounting policies which are described in note 1 to the audited financial statements. We also note that the library did not implement any new accounting policies that happened during the 2021 year. A lot of the school districts had to face what we were referring to as GASB 84 with fiduciary activities. Luckily, those didn't apply to your library, which is actually really good, and it made the audit for 2021 a lot easier. Just discussing some significant accounting estimates. In all financial statements, there's an element of different elements that are included for estimates. This could be your depreciation. Some of your large ones have to do with GASB 68 and 71. So the ERS system, retirement system, and then your OPEB. So other than you know, the benefit obligations that you have that are also included as estimates included in these financial statements. So those are listed here under the accounting estimates. We discovered, or we had no difficulties with management throughout the course of the engagement. If we had some difficulties, we would be required to communicate those to you. So just taking a second. Can you see that at all? I'm not sure why the slides are showing up blank. Okay. All right. Can you guys see that now?
Yes.
Okay. The next part of the presentation is just discussing the audit report. Those are the pages that are ours required communications. Our report is over the 2 different pages, and we report on the financial statements. And it just states that we've audited the financial statements of the governmental activities of each major fund of the Bethlehem Library. So that's where you have your capital projects fund and you have your general fund. And we also look at the notes related to those financial statements. Again, the audit report talks about the responsibilities of management and the preparation and the fair presentation of those financial statements. We also look at the design and implementation and the maintenance of the internal controls that the library includes in their financial statements over financial reporting. Then it talks about our auditor's responsibility, and that's to express an opinion on those financial statements based on our audit. We also conduct our audit in accordance with our government auditing standards, and they help us to design those procedures throughout the course of the engagement. We perform our procedures to obtain evidence to be able to provide our opinion, and that also includes some judgment, and it's a risk-based approach that we use when we design our audit procedures. We consider the internal control, but not for the purpose of expressing an opinion on the internal control. And then we evaluate the accounting policies that are implemented by the library and the estimates that are used by management. And then on the second page is our opinion, which was an unmodified opinion. That's the best opinion that you can get. And we also talk about the required supplemental information that was required as part of the financial statements related to the OPEB and the ERS systems. And then we also reference a separate report that's also required under government auditing standards. So the report on the internal control that's referenced in the separate opinion, those opinions are presented on pages 37 and 38 of the audit report. And that just states in the course of their audit, we have to consider the internal controls over the library to determine the audit procedures that are most efficient in the circumstances to express our opinions. But again, we don't express an opinion on those internal controls. If there was a deficiency in internal control, we would be required to communicate that to management throughout the course of our engagement. And those internal controls are designed to prevent and detect or correct misstatements on a timely basis. Based on our considerations and given the limitations based on what was described above, we did not identify any internal control deficiencies that were considered to be material weaknesses. If there was a material weakness, we would have to include that in that report. The next couple of slides are just summary printouts. I know they're a little bit blurry on the screen at the moment, from the actual financial statements. So this is the statement of net position, which is presented on page 9. This is your full accrual basis financial statements. So this is not what you do on the daily basis, but this is after we've made those adjustments to make them full accrual. So what you'll see here that you don't have normally recorded in your fund level financial statements is the deferred outflows of the resources, as well as the fixed assets. So that's where we have to go and record adjustments to get you from your fund level statements to your full accrual statements. So this is just presenting the assets and the deferred outflows. The next slide goes through and looks at the different liabilities that you have as a library, again, on the full accrual basis. So this is where those long-term liabilities get recorded versus at the fund level, you're just recording those expenses. So this is where we show the compensated absences, which are part of some of those adjustments, the net pension liability, and the OPEB and the pension related to GASB 68. The next page is just the overall net position, again, based on the full accrual basis. That shows the agents or the library's net position of the 8.5 million at the end of June 31st or June 30th to 2021. The statement of activities, again, this is the full accrual basis. It shows your total revenue, your total expenses for the library. You can see that your primary revenue sources are your real property taxes. Did I lose my screen? Or can you still see the slides?
Good.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, we can see that.
Sorry, can you still see the slides?
Yes, that's better.
Okay, I'm going to keep going. On
Yeah, we
page
can-
10 is where we show, sorry.
Yes, we can see the slides.
Okay, because all of a sudden my video changed and I could see myself, so I just wanted to make sure you can still see them. On page 10 is the statement of activities. Again, this is the statement that shows your revenue and expenses. It comes down to your net position and the change for the year. The change was a positive $88,609,000. It was a gain for the year. Again, your primary sources of your revenue is your real property, along with some minor items related to gifts and donations and fees and things like that that you charge your patrons. The page 11 is your governmental fund. That's what you use on a daily basis to record your assets and your liabilities. Something included here, if you think about it, is your prepaid expenses as your non-spendable, because that cash already went out the door. So that's why that shows down in the fund balance as a separate line item, because the money's already been spent. You can see here too that you have your general fund and then you have your capital projects fund, which is showing all zero. We had to represent that page or that column because on the next page, or actually, I'm sorry, 2 pages down, you can see that the capital projects, that funds were transferred back over into the general fund at the end of the year. The next slide, this is the journal entries that we do that take you from your fund financial statements that get you through to your full accrual statements. So this is the journal entries that we help as part of the auditing process to help prepare those full accrual basis financial statements. So it includes the adjustments to record the fixed assets, record the depreciation expense, the OPEB liability, and the GASB 68 adjustment. You can see that those had those large swings in this year. And a lot of it you don't really have any control over related to GASB 68. The next slide, again, summarizes the statement of revenue and expenditures for the library, again, reported at the fund level. So this is what you get reported to on your monthly financial statement. Again, looking at total of the real property taxes as your more significant source of revenue, along with some state sources. And then it breaks down your general expenditures into general operations, what you pay for employee benefits, and then some minor outlays that you do for capital improvements. The next page again shows any transfers. So this is the transfers I was referring to where you had some receivable amount left over in the capital fund from last year that you received, and then those funds were then transferred over into the general fund. The next page, this is where we show the reconciliation that gets you from your income statement basis, again, from the fund level financial statements to the full accrual statements. So this is where, again, to depreciation, for example, is reported, gets reported on the full accrual financial statements versus that's not reported in your fund level. So that you'll see that adjustment there. And then again, to any projects that you have, your changes in your compensated absences, again, your pension adjustments related to GASB 68 and your adjustments related to 71 and your OPEB liabilities. The next page, just to jump into some of your financial statement note disclosures that we wanted to highlight. Obviously, we've been talking about COVID since March of 2020. This is just to let you know that that's still a contingency. It's still out there. We're still facing the impacts of COVID-19. Clearly everyone's still wearing their masks. They're trying to do what's best available for their patrons and for the agencies. So again, this is just letting you know that there's that contingency is considered, and the true effects of it is still unknown. The tax abatement note, just to let you know that the IDA and the town enter into these agreements on behalf of the library, and that with that can have some impacts on you guys, so that you've received essentially pilot payments of about $213,000, and that those agencies, because of having those pilot agreements, have had taxes abated of about $86,000. That can just continues for each year. I think last year there might have been 16 properties, and now there's 15 properties. More than likely, whoever that was that had dropped off will then refile for a new pilot payment, and you'll receive that in the next year. And that's when the town and the IDA will negotiate that on your behalf. The next schedule is the required supplemental information. Again, this shows what your original budget was that the voters had approved. If you've made any amendments to it or changes, that's where you can change from one class or one line item to another, and then where your actual expenditures ended up at the end of the year. And then you have something called encumbrances, which are those items that are budgeted for in the current year budget that you can use for next year. So this is where the library has said that there are 74,000 of items that we're going to use for in this budget where we plan on spending them in the next period. The schedule of changes of OPEB liability. This schedule will show 10 years once you have 10 years of information available. It just goes back and talks about the different measurement date of when these liabilities were measured and the inputs that go into kind of quantifying what that liability could be. So that'll include your service cost, your interest cost, any changes in actual experience, and changes in the investments. If you had any type of investments would be included there. It shows the benefit payments, what you actually paid going out, to then calculate what the actuarial liability would be, if the library were to close and everyone were to retire, what the max liability would be able to be. And then it shows that your covered payroll and what the percentage of that liability is compared to your covered payroll. The next schedule is the proportionate share of the net pension liability. Again, this relates back to the GASB 68, so the ERS system that you have, what your percentage of that total liability is for the state, and what your liability was at the end of the year compared to what your covered payroll is. So you can see overall, you had a very significant decrease from 2020 to 2021 in what that liability was. The last part shows the planned fiduciary net possession as a percentage of the total pension liability, and that's included in the KPMG audit report. The other thing we'd like to talk about is if you had any management letter comments. We're glad to say that we had no management letter comments or recommendations in the current year. If you can kind of think back to last year, we did have just another comment related to GASB 16 and the compensated absences where you would need to accrue FICA, and then also do like a tiering approach. Those were implemented in the current year, so those to be repeated as a management letter comment. So it's great that implemented, and we didn't have to repeat that as a thing. And then that's what I have for the presentation. If you guys have any other additional questions for, I can try to minimize that. Do you guys have any questions at the moment?
Rachel, I wanted to ask you something related to the pension liability. There's a big swing from 2020 to 2021. It dropped, by more than 2 million. Is that related to all the actuarial calculations and the estimates that are used in calculating it for, inflation and interest rates and all of that?
I'm sorry. Could you can you repeat that? It's very, very quiet and hard for me to hear.
You're on. You just need to get closer to the mic. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. about
Yeah, if you could, that'd be
that better?
great.
Even closer.
Even
that. Even
closer.
closer? Okay,
There you
okay.
go.
All right, sorry. My question's about the pension liability and the fact that there was a big swing from 2020 to 2021. There was a drop by over $2 million. And is that related to the actuarial calculations, the estimates that are used, the interest rate, the inflation rate, and so on?
Yes, yep, it's a lot of the changes has to do with that actuarial changes. So if I go back, you'll see it on that last slide where you can see, well, you can kind of see it a little bit, the actuarial changes. If you were to look in your financial statement note disclosures, you would see what the inputs were related to those changes. And that's something, again, it's kind of out of your control. A lot of it has to do with what's going on in the market for why that would drop so drastically from 2020 to 2021. And it also has to do when the ERS year end is. So we have to make sure, because your year end is different than that. So we were waiting for the reports to be issued because their evaluation data is also as of March versus you guys are, a June year end.
Okay,
Does
thank
that
you.
help answer your question?
Yes, thanks.
Okay. Is there any other questions at the moment?
Just so the other trustees know, I spent some time with Sherry this morning, because I had some questions just in terms of understanding all the numbers. So and all of my questions were answered by Sherry this morning. So I don't have any questions right now.
Okay. And if you do, don't hesitate to either reach out to myself or you can reach out to Tom, and we can get you answers as soon as we can. I know with the draft financial statements, if the board can review those and if they can approve those, what we'll do is then send you the management representation letter. And then once that is signed, that becomes the date of the audited financial statements. And then we'd be able to go ahead and get those issued final.
Okay, great. That sounds good. Do we need it?
Okay.
We don't need a motion to accept anything at this point? Do we need a motion to accept anything at this point?
Typically you would make a motion, someone
Okay.
should make a motion to accept the
Accept the
report.
the
Yep.
draft report? All right, I'm seeking a
So
motion. Okay, second. I'll second it. All right.
Harry's got it.
Okay, good. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Okay, seeing no opposition, the motion carries.
Okay.
Can
Thank you.
I just break in for a quick,
Sure.
can you tell me who moved and seconded? I can't see.
Yep, we had Charmaine moved and Harmeet seconded.
All right, thank you.
Okay. So if you guys don't have any other questions, I'll be signing off. But like I said, if you have anything that comes up after, don't hesitate to either contact myself or Tom.
All right. Thank you very much, Rachel.
Yeah.
And I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Okay, thanks a lot. We'll move on to the review of the previous meeting minutes, pages 2 through 7. Going to take a quick look at those, and I'll accept the motion on moving those. Okay. Thanks, Michelle. Can I get a second? Mary, great. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Hearing no opposition, the motion carries. Move on to the financial report, pages 9 through 15.
So expenses are tracking consistently with the prior year. We are about 6% under budget as of this point in time. Salaries are under budget by about 2.5% due to a few open positions. On the revenue side, we have received about 95% of the budgeted real property taxes. We received 4 payments over the last 2 months. So, you know, we have about another 5% to collect, which we expect to receive probably in April after the end of the state fiscal year. I don't know if anybody has any specific questions about anything in the report.
I have one. I saw that the TD Bank General Fund account had a $1.5 million deposit or increase. Is that from the tax? Is that a deposit from
Yes,
taxes?
that's, you know,
Right.
we maintain a balance in the operating account to cover our costs and also to avoid additional fees and expenses. And anything above and beyond that, we try to put in the money market account to earn a little bit more interest. You know, interest isn't great, but at least it's something.
So that represented tax money coming in?
Yes,
Okay.
right. Because we had a big influx of funds
Got it.
coming in October.
Any other questions on the treasurer's report, financial report, treasurer's update?
I just have a general comment.
Sure.
The treasurer's report and the audit. I want to just take a minute to thank Jerry, Tanya, and Jeff for the work in the last year culminating with the audit. They all worked very hard, particularly Jerry and Tanya, who worked well together. They worked as a team. They got a lot done and they had a lot of ideas. And I heard some very good comments about Jerry. So I want to make sure everybody knows how happy you are. You are doing very well. I think that's what I want to ask the board. Jerry has done a lot to, not a lot, but she's revamping some of the reports. Are the reports clear to you? Is it the way you want to? I think they're excellent. They were the she's made. If there's anything else that you want to see, then just let me know. But I want to thank you all for the hard work you put in this year. It's a full year, and things were very, very.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Right,
And then, is Tanya on?
I am.
right. Yeah,
Thank you.
Right
Yep.
there, helping out.
exactly.
Okay, so, and I want to make a motion to accept the treasurer's report as financial report and treasurer's report until 9/15, and particularly the disbursement.
Okay, thanks, Mary.
I'll second it.
Second, Charmaine. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, so hearing no opposition, the motion carried. Personnel update.
I'm going to steal your microphone. All right, so there's a lot going on this month, but I only have one position. It's a part-time paid position. We had a resignation, and I'm seeking to fill that position so that we can get the books back on the shelves, which I'm generally in favor of. So
That's an important part of the library.
you got it.
Okay, thanks. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, motion carries. Thanks, Jeff. Next, moving on to the director's report.
Okay, we're moving along fast tonight. I was taking it light on everybody because I was expecting the audit report to last the longest part. That's okay.
Sorry, Jeff, was there a motion and a second on that last vote?
Yeah,
Yes,
Okay,
Lisa and Caroline.
Lisa and Caroline.
thank you.
We're getting better. Okay, so we'll just run through my director's report pretty quick. I won't belabor. There are some things, some biggish things that are going on. We received a few comments. I have received a few comments from groups that meet at the library. Since COVID, we switched to a new online room booking software. We've shortened the previous period of time that people can request the rooms for from 13 months to 7 months, or from 12 months to 6 months, depending on your perspective and where it falls in the month. At the same time, the librarians are working to make sure that they have appropriate time slots to be able to do library programs because we're, right now programs are not very much, right? We're not able to do a lot inside, but we're trying to guess where we might be doing programs come the spring. This is running right into a collision with some of our community groups that want to know that they have a particular room, and I'm sympathetic to it because they are also trying to get speakers in to come speak to their groups, just like we're trying to get presenters to come in and talk to, and do programs for our public. So, some of the groups are just meeting with a board meeting here. So if they shift a date, it's not such a big deal, but other groups, they really like to know that they have, the third Thursday of the month is theirs. So there's just a little bit of tension with that right now. And that's just that, think about how much less usable the boardroom is now for a lot of things. A lot of people are not comfortable. You don't want to pack the 25-person max number of people into the boardroom. A lot of our groups don't want to do that here. So that makes this room the one room that people want. And weekday nights, like Mondays or Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, they make them a hot commodity as groups want to know that they have space available. That's also when we want to do programs for our public. And we're guessing right now, maybe we're doing that program on Zoom, but we're guessing that we might want to do an in-person program in the spring. So just want to make you aware of that. You might hear from a group that there's, there's been some changes in how rooms can be booked and that there's a little bit of tension with that right now. They're both legitimate uses of this. The main reason the room exists is for the library to be able to do programs for the public. So it's just, it's something you may hear about. Yeah.
So I did with that, as you know. So let me just ask a question. Is the conflict hopefully naturally resolved when COVID ends? I mean, if I'm a group and I've had my slot and I've been using the library once a month for 15 years or 30 years.
Yeah.
I get it that COVID is having an impact, okay? Are we hoping that it's going to go back after COVID ends, or are you saying we're now making the programs more of a priority than our long-term patron work?
I mean, so right now that's the net effect of what's going on because the librarians are able to book the room in a time where they're not booking it 14 months in advance and trying to guess when they want to do a program a year and a half from when it starts. So what I hope
There's less room.
there's less rooms, right? So, but we're not doing indoor children's programmings right now.
Right.
Normally we have the story hour room for that. That doesn't
Yeah.
seem like a great idea. So I think COVID is exacerbating something that has existed for a long time. And I haven't made a secret that, in my opinion, the one of the biggest needs that the community at large has is the availability of meeting space, and that's to the point where, as I said before, banks were trying to get into it where the bank would have a meeting space. There's a lot of demand for public meeting space in the area. And that runs smack into us trying to increase the amount of programming that we're doing for the public. So those two things are in attention because it's a zero-sum game. There are only really this room. This is it. This is, even our own meetings. Sometimes we talked about last month, we might not have the room because we were trying to have a program. So it's something that I would hope would be less intense when COVID resolves itself to whatever for a given definition of resolve. But I'm not anticipating it going away as it wasn't away before. I think it's just something that's come up to people's attention, particularly because they've had to learn a new booking software. And so anytime something's new, there's a bunch of new stuff and they're saying, oh, I can't get the room that I want. That certainly happened in the past as well. But I think there's an awareness to it that is increased.
Okay, but I guess, I'm sorry, I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but I just have some questions as we go forward. So let's say, stick with the third Thursday of the month.
Right.
Okay, I've had the third Thursday of the month for forever. I get it. There's, now we're 2 rooms down to 1, essentially. Okay.
Yep.
So you're booking rooms out 6 months. So a month goes by, now you can go in. I go in the first day it's available. I try to book my room. Well, the librarians have already booked it.
Right.
And this is where I go back to what I've been using the third Thursday for the last 20 years. So you're just disregarding, you're putting the library programs before patrons.
As we always have. That's not, so it's not true that somebody says, oh, I always have the third Thursday of every month. They always want the third Thursday of every month. but they don't necessarily always get the third Thursday of
But
every
when
month.
they were, but from their perception, if they were booking 12 months out, it's highly likely that they were getting it because they knew they needed it and they were booking it. So now the
But-
period is shortened.
But the librarians would have been, the staff would have been able to go in and book 14, 16, and 18 months out in advance for that room as well. So it's not, that relationship hasn't changed between the staff being able to book the room and the public. It's just the overall time period is shorter. So the staff can always go in and book the room before they open to the public. It's not like, oh, it opens and it's Oklahoma land rush and the staff go in and grab the rooms on the same date. It's our room. So we always take the room before. And I think we were certainly cognitively sensitive to the fact that certain groups liked to have things on certain times, but clearly something has changed because some of the group, but I question
Are we
whether,
paying attention to those long-term groups?
I mean, well, that's a question, I guess, for the board. Do you wish us to pay attention more to a group that has been booking the room for 20 years as opposed to?
I would throw the question back to you.
Yeah.
What is the library doing? I understand.
Right.
We have less capacity.
Right.
Clearly, we've had to make some priorities and some decisions that the people are managing it. What is the library directive to the staff of how to manage?
Right, so we're booking the spaces that and Michelle, I'll get right to you.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, because Mary brought up a change in priorities, but I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that the policy even before COVID has always been that library programs and services take precedence over outside groups coming in to use meeting room space. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So the
So,
priority has not changed. It's just that we're in this unprecedented time and our space has shrunk.
right, and I
And
think,
this is an unfortunate.
and they're trying to grab the rooms that they imagine they might want to do a program. And so are there more rooms that are being putting holds on them for programs? I think the answer is clearly yes. So we're putting more holds on there in the anticipation that we can do in the spring, we can do programs at all, which we haven't been able to do many in-person programs, mostly outside. So we're guessing that. So I think absolutely we're putting more holds on than we have traditionally.
Okay, so now, am I hearing that we're putting hold? We don't even have a program, but we're blocking the public from booking the room.
That's correct. Yeah. And that was, again, always true, because if we're trying to guess that we're going to do a program on a Thursday night, 18 months from now, that would have been true then, because locking up a speaker 18 months in advance is difficult.
So yeah, go ahead.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I appreciate your point, Mary, but I mean, also, if we give precedence to someone who's been booking a room for 20 years, there's never a chance for anyone else to get a shot at it. I mean, and that doesn't mean that the people who are getting the room, who have been doing the room for a long time, shouldn't have an equal shot, shouldn't be able to make the effort, but that kind of gets the rule in perpetuity. There would be no opportunity
Right.
for new blood to come in if we were to make that a policy.
Right. And I think the groups that know the date that the calendar opens up, they're aware that they try to go in and make the rooms. Again, they always would have run into our program holds that would have been on those rooms as well. So I don't know that there's that many more times that they're not going to be able to find the room than traditional, or that the switch in the software and the switch in the time frame from 13 months to 6 months is bringing an awareness of that.
Yeah, I seem to remember in history, there's like 4 or 5 groups that always come. The Progress Club seemed to be, because they started the library way back when, seemed to be a preferred group. But then people just fell into a routine of getting these rooms at certain times.
Right. And it's not that I'm not sympathetic to it. I absolutely am sympathetic. I just, I don't know. I mean, that's something we can talk about in terms of the long range plan and the services plan.
Right.
is it the wish to increase the amount of programs that the libraries are doing? And if that's not the wish, then we can put a quota on how many rooms, how many times we're booking a room in a certain time, or move it around, if we're booking on Thursdays or Wednesdays or Tuesdays. But the evenings are when programs happen.
Right.
That's, yeah. And then, so if then we end up putting a hold on something and then we cancel that hold, again, I'm sympathetic to the groups because they're now getting, maybe that's 4 months in advance. And that's not enough time for them. They can then go in and grab the room because it's available. They could grab the room on the evening that they want, but then that's not as much time as they would like to have in an ideal world to be able to book their speaker to come in and talk to the group. If it's a board meeting, that's less of a problem. So.
Jeff, I have a question. So should someone from the public have a concern, is there a designated staff member who we should tell them to?
We do. They can email the BPL calendar, and then that's Jennifer answers that email.
Okay, so that's the point
Yeah.
person, and that's the email we should.
Yeah,
give
and then
them.
she'll come and talk to me if there's a sort of a policy
Okay,
question.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's a
No,
it's a
an
real
issue.
tension, and I don't
Yeah.
have a great solution. So
Right,
I want to
understand.
bring it up because
Yeah.
it's
Just trying to get out there.
yeah,
definitely.
it's important.
Yeah.
So I mean, one of the meeting rooms are one of the services we offer to many people in the public, and if they can't get that, then they're disappointed in the services of the library. At the same time, how many people are coming to a program or would come to a program
Right.
if it's available? What's the better use for the community? We can talk about that. Just thanks to Rabbi Simon for being our helping us test the new setup in the studio to get that going. So we're moving forward towards getting the studio makerspace back up and open and available for folks to use again. And then also we're still for the hallways for the art shows. We're working through a pandemic backlog. You think about how many months we weren't having art shows. All of those people had either hallway booked. So we're giving those folks priority to be able to have their shows in the hallway, but we're working through that right now. And then we'll be opening those up again through the same software, booking software that you can book the meeting rooms through. People will be able to book those hallways. And he's talked to almost everybody, and we'll get that webpage up and going in early 2022 when that room those hallways would start to open up again for the public. So I'm happy that we're finally past all the backups that happened because of COVID. So that's nice. The differences, many of you are aware of the differences in the trick or treat program that we had this year. We stretched out the Halloween parade here in the library. It was more lightly attended than normal. But at the same time, the trunk or treat programs that are what I'm guessing are going to be the norm for those types of programs going forward. We had 1,200 people ish at the town.
Wow.
Yeah, we did our trunk or treat in conjunction with the town, and we had 1,200 people. We were also asked to bring the van to a couple of the elementary school trunk or treat programs, and then we had a trick or treat on the story walk at the rail trail. And thanks for Charmaine to coming out and helping hand out goodies to the kids there. So thanks to the Friends of the Library for coming in and helping us staff the town trunk or treat. So it's you'll see our outreach numbers are really high that month because that's we had beautiful weather. We moved it from Tuesday to Thursday, and the weather was gorgeous, awesomely, and lots of people came out for that. So those types of programs, those outdoor programs for kids right now are super popular, and I think trunk or treat is probably the way most of those things will be going in the future.
A personal thanks for that. It was a tremendous program, and the library's trick or treat treats were spirit. And puppets, they were great.
Yeah, great. I mean, and so we work hard to think about what we can give out that is meaningful and also not candy. So,
And can I say there was also former librarians and people from the Friends, I believe, Friends of
Yep.
the library. So that was a great group, and people really got into the spirit of things. And I can attest to the numbers because I don't think I could had a voice left after saying Happy Halloween about 800 times. But it was a lot of fun. I saw Carolyn came through with her little one and quite a number of other people.
it's a lot of fun, and I think working in conjunction with the town, that just shows like that's the method for reaching those large groups of people that down at the Elm Avenue Park. there's no way we could do anything here on this property that would rival that. So that's nice. And then lots of other good programs we've got. We had New York Times bestselling author came and was able to move to a virtual program because we weren't able to do it in person. That worked out very well. Crafts continue to be popular. And again, the outreach numbers based on the trunk or treat, very, very high numbers. But a lot of collaborations this summer and in this fall with the town. I just want to say thanks to the Parks and Rec Department, the Friends of Parks, for working with us so closely. We really appreciate the partnership, and I think it worked. It just really laid down some good patterns for the future to be able to work with the town, which is great. Lots of great pictures you can see from our programs. I also want to highlight that our supply lines for books appear to be emerging from the pandemic. So we're starting to get books a little bit quicker. We're still getting some of them unprocessed, but more are starting to come in processed. That's less work for the staff, so that's good. And books getting released closer to their actual street date, which is always nice because we're a library. So that's good. And then one of the things that we had talked about including in our long-range plan, but we just decided to go ahead and do it anyway. We're working on the physical and electronic welcome packets for our patrons and people who sign up for new cards. Just a little bit more in user engagement as people come in and are new users, and gives us another chance to engage with them and convert them into users of the library. And we're translating or have translated. Thank you, Catherine. Into Spanish and Chinese, which are the two most commonly spoken languages other than English in our school district. So they can read my letter in those languages as well. And then we did add another language we asked and add another language to our search online, and that was for the Hindi language. So we had a patron request to say, can this also search in this language? And it turns out the answer is yes. So we added that language to the interface. We'll talk about Staff Development Day a little bit later, and then we're just going to roll down several librarians, including Chris and Ann and Kate, are participating in evaluating, auditing, and diversifying your collection. So this was a multi-week online course about how to look at your collections and make sure that we are appropriately representing people of color, LGBTQIA+ folks, and then lots of different ethnic, cultural, and religious minorities as well in our collection. Make sure that those authors and characters are being appropriately represented. We've done some similar work through Upper Hudson with our electronic books, but end result will be focused more on our physical collections. So that's good. And then just take a quick look at some of the numbers, which are really good. I'm super pleased. If you look at the overall circulation, the interesting thing is that our circulation is getting very close to what it would have been pre-pandemic, where the circulation is doing very well. The door count continues to be about half of what it would be during the pandemic. So some of the services of the library are close to fully functioning. The things that focus certainly on electronic books and physical materials are beginning to return to normal. At the same time, that we talked a little bit last month about the sort of hangout time in the library. The afternoons are traditionally very busy here in the library and are now not as busy. We're busier in the mornings than we are in the afternoons. So that's definitely a change from normal, where we would normally have every horizontal surface in the building filled with kids studying either in groups and tutoring, and that's happening not zero, but much less than normal. So I don't know when that comes back, how that comes back, if tutors have moved to Zoom and find it just as effective. They were forced to do so over the pandemic. So I don't know if that's going to snap back or come back. I have no idea, but we'll continue to watch that. It's just interesting that those are the type of services that aren't all the way back to normal yet.
One hypothesis, the kids wear masks all day in schools. So to come here and continue to wear a mask just might be another.
Yeah, just less fun or difficult, or
we just want to be unmasked for a while, and do something at home or on Zoom.
Me too. Trying to get there. So door count's definitely up over last year, but when we talk about door count, we're comparing it to pre-pandemic numbers. So door count is significantly lower than what we would have expected in the past. But you'll still see robust numbers for our electronic materials. I don't think those are going to snap all the way back. Those there was a fundamental reset increase, and I think many people discovered that they in fact like downloadable audiobooks and downloadable ebooks, and they might not go back to physical collections or go back all the way to physical collections. So that's good, and that is enough. That's my report. Yes, ma'am.
I wondered if you thought about adding
They're hard for us to collect. We don't have an automated way to do it. So what we do is episodically we track with hashtags. We'll do like a sweeps week, and once it's settled into sort of normal operation, it's about 12% of circulation, and it really hasn't gone up or down that much. So it's not huge. It's certainly not burdensome in the way it was when that was the only thing we were doing, running out back and forth all the time. It's not that, though it probably seems like it every once in a while. But I think that's one of those numbers that's settling into what will likely be a pretty steady indicator of how people would use that. I think many people who were using it earlier in the pandemic are now comfortable coming into the library, going to the desk, retrieving their books, and leaving like you would for a takeout order at a restaurant, but maybe not necessarily lingering in the library for as long. But some people discovered curbside and never want to go back. So, that feels pretty steady. Catherine, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the curbside numbers seem pretty steady in the longish term. So we'll continue to monitor that. And we'll do sweeps, and we'll report back to you when I have good numbers on that. But it's a lot of work on behalf of the circulation staff. They're taking tick marks, and we tend to focus it on patrons rather than checkouts. So how many patron tracks, because we can check that electronically too if we want to. So we'll compare those. It seems kind of an apples to apples comparison. It's less about did you check out 5 books through curbside or 1. It's was there a curbside transaction or an in-person transaction. So
Yeah, as the weather gets colder, I don't know how it, might have to impact.
it's really
Either
interesting
way, though,
because we had a lot of people when the weather was terrible, the lightning or rain.
Yeah.
You got a lot of people would come in and they'd say, "Well, I don't want to make you come out in the rain."
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know the answer.
Right, yeah.
We'll see.
Okay, any questions for Jeff on his report? Okay, UHLS report, Lisa.
Upper Hudson meeting is later this week.
Yep, of course.
The majority of this month, we're going to be spending on central library budget approval, and hopefully have a little more information about the federal funds, but I don't have anything to report other than what I had last month. So, sorry.
It feels like a lot of layers for the money
It does.
to get to us. That's
Yeah.
There's a lot of agencies in the way between us and there. So.
Okay, great. Thanks, Lisa. All right, we have 2 items for new business, the New York State retirement invoice on page 26, 27. It's laid out there. It's not really optional.
It's really not. It's one of those
so-
things that Rachel was talking to you about.
Yeah.
Like you can vote, you have to vote on it, but it's
Right.
not really a choice.
Right.
So this year, if we pay before December 15th, which I recommend, because
Sure.
they give us a little bit of a discount, and it's 316,827. That's up a little bit, I think, just with the market. Remember, there's still some bad years from the past where the market was not doing so well. There's a 5-year smoothing on that number, so you don't really get all the impacts of the good numbers without the impacts of those bad number of years. 2009 is luckily gone because that was really ruining
Yeah.
us. So we're in better shape than that. But in any case, it's way over my authorization limit. So I need your permission to pay that bill.
Just to let you know, we budgeted 322,000. So this came in.
Great.
Good job. Good job, Sherry. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, I'll take a motion on this.
So moved.
Charmaine? Second, Mary, all's in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, motion's carried. The next item is staff development day.
Okay, I don't have anything to display on this, so we'll just roll up here a little bit. So staff development day, I'm just going to let you know, last year we did not have a staff development day. So I opted to not do that. We had done, with the various libraries closures, we had done just a ton of staff training. This year, we have been here. So we've done a lot less of that opportunity for staff training. I really hemmed and hawed about how I could do this in a safe manner. It was great to be able to get all of the staff together. Just doesn't feel like the best idea this year to cram the entire staff into this room. So we're going to host it virtually. We will have many staff here in the building spread out in various places. Of particular concern is lunch. I just don't have enough places. It's December. I can't say go out and eat at a picnic table. I mean, maybe the weather will be good, but I can't imagine that it will be actually. So it's going to be cold. And so we'll have some folks here in the building. Some folks will be participating from home. We have a lineup of a speaker in the morning. We'll do the state of the library. You're all welcome to attend too. If you want to come in the building, you have to let me know. I have to find a space for you. Other than that, you can attend remotely. We'll have our training in the morning, my state of the library, and just our required right to know trainings, MSDS sheets, all of those trainings that we have to have, the required trainings we have to have every year. Report on our safety plan. And then in the afternoon, because I think mental health is really important, we're going to have a presentation from EAP. Just to remind that every staff person has access to these services as well as their family members. So we're going to have a presenter from EAP come and present to the staff about that. And then we'll have some team building exercises in the afternoon. So that's the only reasonable way I figured we could have staff development day this year.
Do you have a date yet set?
Yeah, it's the first Friday in December.
First Friday in December, okay.
I can tell you exactly what that
Third.
is.
I think it's the third.
December 3rd. Okay.
December 3rd. And the library will be closed for that day.
Right.
In the evening as well. So it's December is our slowest month of the year. We used to
Right.
do staff development day at the end of June, and we were carving out to take a closed day in a day that of the second most popular circulating month seemed ridiculous. So now we do it in December, away from the holidays as much as we can, and just to get everybody together and talk about some stuff. There's been a lot this year. It's a lot for the staff this year. So I'm looking forward to some of the conversations that we're going to have. So
I know that in previous years that the staff had provided cupcakes, dessert, and education. Obviously, we're not going to do that this year. Look at any ideas of other ways that the board can demonstrate appreciation?
no, but we can talk about it.
Yeah, we should
I'll
talk
think about that. It's a good idea. Yeah.
Well, I will say I'm going to Krause's this week. So if we want to get like candy bag, or get bulk candy and make a little bit, it's just pre-wrapped and
Great.
Can I just clarify? So what parts of that day, if any or all, are board members invited to?
You can come to any of it,
Okay,
not lunch.
Yeah.
You can come for lunch too. I mean, it'll make it work.
I'm sorry, say again?
I said not lunch, but then I said, you can come for lunch too. We'll figure it out. So
Or like a
Just,
Zoom
yeah,
link or something.
the state of the library address is actually very interesting. I've come a bunch of times. It's fascinating. I would encourage all board members to log in or come stop for that.
In pre-COVID times, the state of the library,
Yeah.
trustees would go to, we'd very often go and join the staff and eat lunch with them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, and whatever the other programs were in the morning. I mean, we were welcome to stay in the afternoon, like when they did, like team building type exercises. I never stayed for that,
Mm.
but it was nice to just sit and mingle
Yeah.
with the staff. And I think when we started doing it, I think the staff really, appreciated that we took the time to come
Very
in
much so.
and spend some time with them. So
yeah, it's something we're definitely, the staff will miss the time to be together and the time. I particularly appreciate when the trustees come. I think just having that more casual conversations, especially at lunch, I think that's great. And I'm sorry that I can't make it happen this year.
I have a quick question. How far in advance do you tell the public the library's gonna be closed that day? Like, I know Ann was talking about the footnotes and all the rest.
Yeah.
How do we get that?
It's already out. It's already out.
It's already out there?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
So you'll send the link out.
I will. Yep.
Okay, good.
Yeah, the only part that's going to be different, I think EAP likes to, they own the Zoom and you can, so
Yeah.
the rest of it will be our Zoom account and I'll send that link out to everybody. So you can just pop on and pop off as you want to. And I'll send out an agenda so you know what time generally things are going to happen. So I have mostly this year I've been doing weekly updates for the staff via video and recording it, sending out emails. And I was thinking that the staff were going to be sick of hearing from me. And they're like, oh no, we have to have the state of the library. It's very important. Okay. State of the library. State of the library it is. So
And one more question. What's the topic for the morning speaker?
it's going to be microaggressions and inclusion. Oh, implicit bias. Thank you. So implicit bias and microaggressions. Anyway, just wanted to let you know about that. Nothing really to vote on. So thank you. Thank you for that.
No, that's great. No, thanks. Appreciate that. Okay, and moving to old business, long-range plan, process update. Harmeet, you want to do that or you want to do that, Jeff?
I'll jump in. Doesn't matter. So Chris and Catherine and I met with Harmeet to talk about the services plan and the fact that we want to get the entire long-range plan put to bed. Not just, we focus a lot on the building side, which is appropriate, but we also need to work on some of the services side. We got some feedback from Harmeet about how we might present a more prioritized list of things that we imagine in that sort of, our thought had been to present a larger selection of items and then talk with the trustees on the committee about what of that might be achievable and what of that might be better, and then make sure we're including things that are your ideas and not ours. As well, Harmeet thought that maybe we better if we put some prioritization on that list so that you could know where the administration of the library thinks our top priorities. So we'll go ahead and do that, and then we'll schedule a long-range plan meeting and get that thing put to bed. So
yeah, some of the items on the list I think are just due sorts of items, right? They were relatively low dollar items that the staff thought were worth doing on the service plan, and I mean, if they're relatively low dollar, I don't know that coming and convincing us that people who do this for a living think it's important is a good way to spend their time or our time. So you focus on the bigger dollar stuff, right? And then let the librarians and the staff make their first pass at here's what we think is important and why it's important, and then put that in front of the board and see where we agree on how they're prioritized and everything.
So we'll be scheduling that, and we'll get that moving and put to bed, which I'm excited for.
So I just have a question because I'm on the committee. So I just want to review for me again when the committee comes on.
When the what?
When the committee comes into the.
That's next. The long range plan committee is the next step. We get that committee back together because we were focused on the building so much. It's time to come back and we'll schedule a committee meeting and we'll talk about the services plan.
Great, thank you. And you were also, I think, communicating with us about architects and how to find people. Is that not?
That's
Yeah,
building,
that's the next.
building committee. That's the
That's
next one.
building committee.
That's
Okay,
next.
I see. I'm getting them mixed up.
You're on
Thank
that too.
you. All right, thank you.
Right. Okay, any questions on long range planning? Okay, the building committee process update. So I'll just do a little bit.
Sure. Go ahead.
So Jeff sent around an RFP to take a look at if you want to use an RFP that the committee's looking at. The question is, that's one question. Do we do an RFP or do we kind of use that document and meet with a couple of interested parties as we move forward? So that's a decision point there. I think that's where we stand. Everything.
That's right where we are.
Yeah.
I have a question too, and I sort of
Sure.
raised this last month, and maybe we don't have an answer yet, but again, I think we learned something from our last large project, which was we would have been better off bringing the construction side in earlier in the design process. Okay, and not wait until the design was complete and wrapped up and just handed it to construction. It's better if there is interaction. So are we talking about that concept? Do we have an idea of how we might bring that to fruition? You don't have to tell me what that is, but I want to make sure that we don't lose sight of that, because that was a huge issue.
Yep.
Jeff, you and I know that more than anybody else.
Absolutely.
Okay, that supposedly there were things that could have been caught if construction people had reviewed the plan.
Right. And I think that's in the conversations with the architects, the architecture firms. Some of the firms are that we've looked at, or I've worked with other area libraries, are design build. What I'm not sure is if we were to move in a design build way, that how we appropriately bid the construction part of that separate from the design work. So an architect is a professional that the board can hire literally by whatever means the board decides to hire whatever the architect is. You're allowed to hire your professional, like your auditor or anybody else. You're allowed to hire that person to work on a design work, to work with the board and come up with this design. If it's a design build firm, the assumption is that firm has the inside track on doing the construction as well. And the other way we can do that is make sure that we hire a construction manager and bake that in early. And that's another professional position, and make sure the construction manager is in on very early in on those discussions. And that gets put together in the discussions that we have with the architects to make sure that they understand that they're going to be working with a construction manager early on. Because I, like you, think that's the key.
And when you say the construction manager, you're not specifically talking about an individual.
Not the firm.
You can have a construction management firm.
Which
Yeah.
is a significant part of your budget. And
Yeah.
they, all trickles down from that, but it gives you breadth of knowledge instead of all your little pieces. Okay, as long as we are still looking in that direction.
Right, and we have some experience with that in the 03 renovation. We had an architect and we had the contractor, but as well we had Santa Rubin as the construction manager, not responsible for any of the construction, but overseeing the person with the clipboard who's like, hey, how come you're not here on Thursday? I've learned from the HVAC project that I'm fundamentally unqualified to do that job. So we need a person. who knows what they're
Years
doing.
of library training should have trained you.
Yeah, all the library school. We didn't talk about that at all.
Right.
So yeah.
And although I don't have obviously experience with a previous project at the library, I do have experience with architects, construction managers, and construction because of the bonds of the district.
Yeah.
Not that I'm an expert, but I've
No.
interviewed construction managers and understand their roles in the different process.
Great.
So you concur with that approach that we're talking about.
Well, I think first thought is as I understand it, the committee is going to decide how they're going to throw this out to architects
Right.
who may be interested, whether it's through an RFP or inviting certain, and then we start engaging with that. But throughout that process, even in the interviews, is the discussion of how do you work with the construction company and the essential component of the construction manager.
Right.
Right. And they're separate but related pieces. Yes. So with the district, we interviewed different. The architect did not come with a construction manager. We interviewed construction manager companies separately.
Am I correct that nothing has been presented to the public because there's nothing to present to the public?
Correct.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Right.
That-
I mean,
that we're
it's-
still at I understand where we are. I understand priorities have been amassed and assessed, but we're still very much in an information gathering. I don't want to call it information gathering, but we're still figuring out everyone who has to come to the party
yes.
and what the best approach for that is and what that might cost. And once we have that information, that would be presented. But at this moment, there is no information.
Yeah, I think we have some good information about pie in the sky wishes. I think it's important to put some order of magnitude framework in place as far as costs are concerned, and with some of the schemes. And I keep using that word. I think it's important to use the word scheme. As the architect that we hired went through the long range plan process, gave us very rough estimates about what things would cost. I think that's important because how, we can imagine all sorts of things. Wouldn't it be amazing to have a slide that went, whatever. I mean, it's, you can always, we have a lot of good ideas too. We imagine all sorts of things that would be incredible service, but it's not, it has to be feasible. And I think that having some discussion of the order of magnitude really helped maybe prepare us for the discussion about what would be included in an actual design. What would that actually be? And that's the next step. That's with that architect. It's time to get some design work done and then get some numbers underneath that and begin to have that conversation.
It's even around the parameters, but even, for example, the high school auditorium that was renovated, they came with 3 different plans with rough price tags.
Yeah.
One included a balcony, and the reason there's no balcony there because you have to put the elevator in. So, but there is, the middle ground was to have a stage with an extension, a fly extension. So that was okay, that would go with that. But they came with rough estimates of, here's, Mama Bear, Baby Bear, and Papa Bear. And then start just flushing out those numbers. And then the board continued discussion in public session about, so I think it's a combination of committee meeting, discussion with the full board in public, and with rough price tags start getting placed on it as the designs start being put in. But, as raised by the public participation session, maybe part of interviewing architects is how do you involve the community and who both close and far. And so that would be, I think we'll have to make note to include that in this.
Well, making sure the contract has a number of those public meetings, those public engagement meetings exactly scheduled in and included in their cost. I think, I don't want to add that on. That's part of what we need them to do is to talk with the public. So.
Okay, any other further questions on building committee process? Okay, moving to future business, talked about fines a little bit. So we had an ad hoc committee meeting on fines, and there's a doodle out to do another meeting sometime before Thanksgiving, I saw, thank you. Just talked about the implications and got some great data from staff on that, so that's kind of where that's at.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, one question on fines.
Sure.
So is there an open question that we need to answer at that next fines meeting, or is there some piece of data we're waiting on to make the decision?
Can't quite hear you on the side, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I guess for the fines discussion, is there a specific piece of data that we're waiting on to make a decision at that next meeting, or?
I think there was so much data presented that people wanted to sit with it for a while.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think it took like over an hour and a half to just run the numbers, and people I think just said, okay, we had some preliminary discussion, but it's like, let's take some time,
Right.
and reflect and think and then come back.
And there have been a couple questions. Mark has some questions, and we've got Catherine working on that right now, and we'll have that data back and presented before the next fine committee meeting. So just some ideas about timeframes and adjusting timeframes, amnesty days, those sort of things.
I've also asked Jeff and Lisa as our UHLS representatives to see if we can get some copies of presentations that were given to the board a number of years ago, not so many years ago, 2, 3.
More 4, yeah. Chris was one of the other presenters on that. So
about the importance of childhood literacy, and because I think a lot of the data that we received really kind of came to the hard conclusion that fines affect lower income families more than others. And the presentations that we had gave, I think, some rather alarming evidence and information that children from lower income households are at greater risk for a lack of literary development, and the myriad long-term consequences of that. So kind of I think we know that it does this is what that causes, is maybe a connection that we need to make a little bit of. So I think if we can get a copy of that presentation, I think that had incredible information in it. And if we can get something more up to date, that would be great. But my guess would be that the information has not improved, that childhood literacy continues to be an issue, even more so in this strange pandemic time.
That answer, okay.
Okay, great. Okay, any other future business or new business, any other things anyone want to discuss in the public here? Move on.
I
Sure.
have one quick question. Again, talking about finances, potentially, if we were ever being to talk about a bond issue. Okay,
Mhm.
we have not made any decision about it. If we do a bond issue, have debt service on a bond issue, debt service has to be repaid by the taxpayers. How does that expense relate to the 2% cap? Is that like on the side, it doesn't get included?
No, it's a great question.
Yeah.
So if the library were to seek in a year, a bond issue, clearly any bond is going to exceed the tax cap. So what would happen is that this board would have to vote with a supermajority of you would have to vote to put forth that bond and include in that budget that amount, the service for that bond in that year. And then that would go to the public and it would need a simple majority, which is slightly different than the school districts, where if the school districts want to exceed the tax cap, then they require a 60% vote of the public. Because we're not a school district, what we need is a 60% vote of you and then a simple up or down vote from the public in order to move forward with that. So it absolutely is not separate as far as the comptroller is concerned.
Okay, so I think what I heard you say when you said the service plan, we would present the budget like we do every year. But then we'd also say, oh, and if this is the bond issue, and here is the debt service schedule that goes with it. I can't tell you exactly what your bill is going to be, but we're adding an additional X amount in principal and interest payments to our budget. It's going to go out, whatever it is, 5 or 10.
Right.
All
Yeah.
right.
And then really the levy is in year one is whatever 1/5 or 1/10, whatever that proportion is. That's how much the levy goes up in that given year. It's not the full millions of dollars of the project, but that
Oh, yeah.
one piece. You got it. Yeah.
And just clarify, it's 60% of the voters. So not necessarily the public. So it has to pass at
Sorry,
60%. Yeah,
60% of the voters.
It's
Yeah,
obvious.
sorry.
No,
Yep. No, you're 100% right. And that's where, even though our vote is held by the school district, the rules that apply to us are the municipal rules and not the school district rules. So we are a school district public library, and many of the laws that apply to us are for school districts. This is one area where, like if the town wanted to exceed the tax cap, they need a 60% vote of their board members. Similarly, anything that would exceed the tax cap would require the same level of vote here in order to move forward and get presented to the public. Yep.
Okay, great. Any other questions, concerns? Okay, moving on to public participation. I don't know if we have any further public participation.
Nope.
Come in, okay. We need to now move into exec session.
Yes, so I'm looking for a motion to move into executive session to discuss the employment history of a particular individual.
Harmeet, thanks. Mary, second. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Okay, motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Good to see you.
Thanks.